Hi, this is John Hoffs. The date is July 5th, 2020, which is a Sunday. I come to you to explicate my two most valued spiritual principles. One is provided by Alan Watts, a British theologian who became an expert on Zen Buddhism. And this idea is presented in his essay, This Is It, written in 1959. The other idea, or guiding principle, you might say, is provided by J. Krishnamurti, the Eastern thinker. Has an interesting and very little known story as far as the lay person, and that's that he was a young boy in India, a poor boy, living with his father, who is the custodian or the caretaker of the headquarters of the Theosophy Society, an American group that believed in the unification of all religions and was quite progressive in its day. And Krishnamurti, as a boy at age 14, was spotted by one of the top officials of the Theosophy Association, and he was designated to be what they called the world teacher. And that world teacher was a messianic figure to them. So Krishnamurti just went along with it because he was just a child, but he broke away after a certain amount of years and said he renounced his membership in the Order of the Star, which was his supporters group to promote him. He went off on his own and renounced any kinds of organized religions. And he spent most of his years speaking and traveling, but his home base was Ojai, California. So what are these two guiding principles or ideas that have struck me with such force that they've stuck, so to speak? The first one is Alan Watts's assertion that the immediate now, the present moment, in all of its universal manifestations, is actually the point of and the purpose of life. We all have asked all our lives, what is life? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? What's the point? And he breaks it down into the most simple unit you can imagine, and that is the present moment being the purpose and the meaning of life. And that when one grasps that and sees how attainable it is, because it is designed specifically for human beings who have, underneath all of the layers of conditioning and teaching and prejudices and experience and memory, underneath is a original pure self, our true nature, as they say in Buddhism. And that never goes away. That purity and that perfection. And since the universe is perfect just as it is, just as one would not change a brush stroke of a Rembrandt or a note of a Beethoven symphony, one would not and need not try to change the unchangeable, which is that the universe itself, with its own properties of vibration and nature and astronomy and all of its complexity, is what we are part of. We are part and parcel of it. And in this way of thinking, all of what I had just said might sound, well, of course, yeah, sure. But what is different once you've adopted the present moment being the be-all and the end-all is that the past is no longer of any power over us. It becomes neutralized as just yet another in the evolution of the universe, the passage of time. It's just some thoughts or experiences that I had or that you had, which are now, as I like to say, relegated to the dustbin of history. But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because we're not living in the past, and the past usually brings us down more than it makes us happy. So by living in the present moment, the present now, and having the understanding that this present moment is where the universe has led us to. The entire universe has conspired in the way the universe does to bring us to this present moment in all of its glory, and even in its negative aspects. We can't have pure happiness without having experienced some despair. And that is the number one principle, that the present moment is the purpose of life. The second principle that's meant so much to me, the one that was given by J. Krishnamurti, and that is that listening is an art. And not only is it an art, but it's the most important art. It's the most important mirror to reality, because there's a relationship that occurs between a listener and a speaker. And who's there? What? Oh. Well, that was an interruption. Wrong delivery. So that listening, imagine you receive a phone call from a friend. Think of how wonderful it is that that person wants to speak to you, and they want you to listen to them. That's a gift, to have a friend like that, or a relative like that. And so, what is the art of listening? Why is it so important? And why is relationship, why is reality found in the mirror of relationship? One way, which something I've kind of put together, is that, we don't see ourselves unless we look in the mirror. And even then, it's not really us, it's a reversal of us. But 99% of the day, well, maybe for some of us a little less than 99%, but anyway, we don't, for 99% of the time, we don't see what we look like. We see what other people look like. And in a way that I think is unnoticed by many of us, when you look at the other person's face as they respond to you speaking, that is actually, they are actually a mirror for you to see the reality of how you are communicating, whether it's with confusion, whether it's with real understanding, and all of the cues and expressions on a person's face that are provided that give you that feedback. But there's no purpose in it other than the purpose of relationship itself. It's a experience of man, and it's something that man seems to require, is relationship. So many of us throughout our lifetimes have many relationships with family, with friends, with, as we get older, and with partners and wives and husbands and boyfriends and girlfriends, and all of these relationships. And in many ways, we define our lives through our relationships with other people. But that is just one way of looking at it. It's not good or bad to define ourselves through relationships. So anyway, until next time, I hope that was little ponderings, as I like to call them, at least made sense. And if not, that's okay too. Thanks for listening.